You're watching Fox Sports. The Miami Dolphins and San Francisco 49ers, two of the league's most successful franchises. Dan Marino and Steve Young, two of the league's most decorated field generals, entering the twilight of stellar careers. Marino owns or shares 31 NFL records, yet entering his 16th season, this signal caller would trade them all for the ring. Starting his 14th year, Steve Young is the most accurate passer in NFL history. Young has already hoisted the Lombardi Trophy, but he burns for another. In 2 weeks, we play for keeps right here on the one and only NFL on Fox.
And welcome to this Fox NFL preseason special as we get set for today's game between the Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers. As we welcome you to the Fox Network Center. Hello, everyone. I'm James Brown. Thank you so very much for joining us. And joining me, as always, as they will throughout the season, all the way Super Bowl through Super Bowl 30.
You are the most polite man I believe I've ever met.
Thank
you so very much for joining us.
I'm glad to have them join us.
Not many people do that.
I'm glad to have them join us.
I'm thrilled to have them here.
And I'm glad to have you here as well. Let's go to Howie and, of course, what's his name? Chris
Collinsworth.
Chris Collinsworth.
Thank you.
Miami last year made the playoffs despite an anemic ground game. In Jimmy Johnson's third year now, he says they will be in contention. How do you size the team up?
You know, the only thing I'm worried about with this program, though, how are you going to have that chair jacked up like that all year long? I mean, you and I are the same height. We are the exact same height.
But see, here's the difference. I'm a bridge troll. I have a 32-inch inseam and a long upper body. Yeah. Now, you want to get to some football?
You know, the Miami Dolphins, how many times
you didn't study this week.
No, I didn't. How many times do we have to talk about the Miami Dolphins? Every year, no matter who's the coaches down there, they're always trying to tell me, this is the year we're going to run the football. This year we're going to run the football. They got a little bit serious about it in this offseason. Kevin Donnelly, they picked him up on the offensive line. Richmond Webb's going to play for the first time. But today we find out they're playing against the San Francisco 49ers, one of the best run defenses in all of football. A major step up. Can Jimmy Johnson, his running game, get it done today? We shall see.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to get it done early on against the starting defense of the 49ers. This team was number 1 in the NFL last year overall, number 2 versus the rush. So what do? They go and they get better. They pick up Langham at the corner, drop McQuarters at the corner. He's played outstanding. Tubbs, middle linebacker from New Orleans, he's done an outstanding job. Wilkins is hurt right now. This unit is unbelievable. Bryant Young might be the premier defensive tackle in professional football. Offensively, Steve Young. That's the whole story. This offensive line is patchwork. They put people in Fiore at left tackle. They got decent right tackle. These guys don't add up to $500,000 in salary. Every team has $1 million tackle. They don't have 2 tackles that add up to $500,000. Steve Young makes things happen on the run. That's the way it works with them. Steve Young is a great, great player. He makes that offense go.
Insight like that just makes me honored to be sitting next to you.
I don't like to know you.
Not to mention. They also have Greg Clark at tight end and Mark Edwards at fullback, tuning you guys. 3 new starters on offense and defense. We'll see. Nathaniel Green gone, the speed guy's going to hurt Miami.
I agree.
What was the name you gave yourself?
Should he have practiced Wednesday?
Should he have practiced?
While they discuss that, let me tell you, it is now time to send you up to San Francisco. But first, a reminder, kickoff 98 just around the corner. We've got a great start to the season for you. On the road, the pregame will be in the Meadowlands before that big early NFC East matchup between the Giants and the Redskins. Check your local listings for the game and time in your area. As we take you up to San Francisco, Pat Summerall, it'll be good to see you and John there with us.
And JB, we look forward to that, seeing you at the Meadowlands in just 2 weeks when the regular season kicks off in the NFL. Meantime, we are at 3Com Park in San Francisco. As the 49ers entertain the Miami Dolphins, a rare appearance for the Dolphins here at this ballpark, at least. I'm Pat Summerall. This is a game that has added importance, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But you remind you to just stay with us throughout the season here on Fox until we go to Miami in January to bring you Super Bowl number 33. With me, as usual, John Madden, and with me, as he was 2 weeks ago in Green Bay, Matt Millen. And let me ask, first of all, John Madden, why is this game so important to the coaches and to the players? We still have 2 weeks to go before the regular season starts. Why this one singled out?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Both Jimmy Johnson and Steve Mariucci use the same words. It's a dress rehearsal. And I remember as a coach, I always figured that the second to the last preseason game was the one that I was really going to test my team. And I wanted to see where we were as an offense, a defense, and special teams, because earlier you're just playing a lot of guys. You want to see your backup play. You want to test young guys, see how they are. Next week is the last preseason game, and all you want to do in the last preseason game is get it over with, have no injuries, and get on with the season and get ready for the season. So this is the week that you can test to find out where you are. And it's interesting, you know, I don't know how players felt about that, Matt.
Well, I think that the great point there is because different players feel different ways. Because what the coaches have been telling you all week long is that it is a dress rehearsal. So for your veteran guys who've been there before, your Dan Marino, your Steve Young, your Bryant Young, you know that it is a dress rehearsal. You want to put your best foot forward, you want to be right, make no mistakes, and get ready to go into the regular season. But then there's the others, and the others fall into two kind of categories. The first category is the young first or second year player who really hasn't played in this league, but he knows he can. This is his shot. So he's on the bubble, but he's nervous. The worst position in all of football, if you're a football player, is the veteran of 4 or 5 years who played in this league. He's been in big games. He knows he can do it, but he also knows that he's on the bubble, and this could be his last shot.
All right, Matt and John, thank you very much. The Dolphins will receive, so we'll see Dan Marino first. John Bexford will kick off for San Francisco. Avery and Brock Marion back deep. Avery's number 20, Brock Marion's 31. They'll return it for the Dolphins. There's Jimmy Johnson, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, and the guy who's really in charge of this whole football operation. Jimmy said when he first took the job he was going to rebuild, that he'd bring in younger players. He had salary cap restraints. Well, he's done just that. The kickoff from Bexford. Taken by one of the upbacks, Zach Thomas. Let's have a look at the Miami offense, led, of course, by Dan Marino, as it has been for so long. He holds 24 NFL passing records. He looks and feels good, he says. Richmond, Webb, Dixon, Ruddy, Donnelly, and Brown in front of Marino. Abdul-Jabbar, Pritchett, Jordan, McDuffie, and Drayton as the tight end. They lost Yatil Green, and that's a big loss, a speedy loss. 1st and 10 Dolphins at their own 41. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar gets the first carry. And let's look at the 49er defense. Rebuilt somewhat. The front four, Dolman, Junior Bryant in place of Stubblefield, Bryant Young, and Roy Barker. The linebackers, Norton, Winfred Tubbs replacing Gary Plummer, Lee Woodall, Langham, a new cornerback, McDonald, Hanks, and Darnell Walker, who had some starts last year and who played very well and has throughout training camp. 2nd and 7. Abdul-Jabbar got 3.
Dan Marino says this is going to be a pass, Pat. First play run, second play pass.
Here's a pass. Drayton was open, a flag on the play. And this is in the area of holding.
Yeah, you know sure I'm on it. You know, the Dolphins are going to something new, Pat. They have a new offense, a new offensive coordinator, a new way to call plays. And another thing they're doing for the first time is they're scripting. You know, like the 49ers and Denver and those teams do, they're scripting their first 20 plays.
The other thing I think, John, that the Dolphins have is a new confidence. And where it really shows up is in that offensive line. Whereas before there were times that it had been a liability, Jimmy Johnson has a lot of confidence in that group right now.
Ron Blum is the referee. Jimmy Johnson, as I started to say, had said he was going to rebuild from the ground up, and he has 51 players on his roster who have 3 years or less experience.
Well, you know, the two things that Jimmy likes is one is youth and the other is speed.
And And he's got a lot of both, although Yatil Green's loss handicaps him in that area. That's Jabbar. Fumble! Ed Perry tracked it down, chased it down. They had it first down on the 41-yard line, and the Dolphins are going the wrong way.
Yeah, and Jimmy wants to run the ball so badly. For years it's all been Dan Marino and passing, and he wants this to be successful. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar cuts back. You see, has the ball out there in his right hand, and he's hitting that thing, just flops out of there. Luckily, Ed Perry was in good position to recover it.
They really did a good job with that offensive line, however, of getting guys on people and creating that little bit of a cutback.
3rd and 25, 3 wide receivers. Marino said he'd use the shotgun some. He's in it now. His protection is good. Marino almost intercepted. Darnell Walker, who they say is a great technician. That's a term that you like to stay away from sometimes.
Well,
you got to play before you become a technician.
Yeah, he's a pretty good player, Darnell Walker. You think of him as a backup, but he's starting today for Marquez Pope, and he started 11 games last year at that corner for Marquez Pope.
John Kidd's punt will be fielded by McWaters, and McWaters, the 49ers first-round draft choice, shakes a couple of tacklers, and the 49ers will take over in pretty good shape. They think he's going to be a good one for a long time, McWaters. Here's the 49er offense led by Steve Young, highest all-time completion percentage. Peoria, new tackle. Brown, Dahlman, Gogan, all that were there last year. Deese, the right tackle. Smith starting at tight end. Mark Edwards gets the carry, his first action of the year. He's had a bad back.
Not wasting any time with Mark Edwards. He hasn't really practiced very much. His back has been bothering him.
The Dolphin defense, that too has improved. Taylor, Gardner, Tanner, and Mixon. Owens just signed last week. Rogers, Zach Thomas in the middle. 49ers out quickly. 2nd and 4. Young looked right, pulled it down. Completes the pass to J.J. Stokes. 49ers have huge wide receivers. Stokes and Owen, both about 6'4".
We were talking to Steve Young the other day about that, and he says, you get in a huddle and you look at those guys, and he said, it's kind of fun. He said, it looks kind of nice.
It looks even better with those corners of Miami when they're that small.
Almost like cheating, he said.
Yeah, when he has Jerry Rice in there, he says it is like cheating.
Pass complete to Herb Smith. John Madden, if you see lines on your picture screen, the gold lines will be John Madden. The silver lines will be Matt Millen. I think they'll be white.
I'll take silver.
Yeah.
Silver sounds good.
Yeah, okay. Gold and silver. It's a very rich booth.
Look at this. They said trips right. Here it is right there. Now you get the motion.
That's Garrison Hurst, who doesn't make it back to the line of scrimmage. The ball slapped loose late, but he was down.
It was interesting. What they tried to do is get him what they call trips right and get in a passing formation. You see, and they get the passing formation out here. They get motion here. Make this defense think that it's going to be a pass, and then get them to get in a pass rush type of defense and then run right into it. Of course, they didn't allow for that penetration there.
Yeah, Mixon took the hard inside on Deese and beat him.
3rd and 9. And Young retreats. And now Young has no place to go, and down he goes.
Now there is
arms of Jason Taylor.
Probably the best defensive player on the Miami Dolphin defense is Jason Taylor.
Yeah, and I think so. And you're going to see him going here against Dave Fiore. This is the new tackle of the 49ers. Here's Jason Taylor right here. And, he has that speed and quickness. You see, he starts outside, and then he just goes to the inside.
He's fun to watch.
Yeah. But he's
quick.
so fast that he's one guy that can run around things and still get there.
Jordan back deep for Miami. He gets it back to about the 27, onto the dirt portion of the infield, what is normally the baseball infield. Jim Schwann's down to make the stop. And there's a Dolphin down as a flag was thrown way away from the play.
That was right in the area of the kicker. They kept blocking and kept blocking, and the official just kept blowing his whistle and blowing his whistle, Pat, and they didn't stop.
Personal foul. Unnecessary roughness.
Buckley, they're
28.
Their special teams ace, 28.
15 yards from the end of the run.
There's Buckley right there, number 28.
See, and you hear the whistle. See, these guys, they just kept going.
That's Sam Madison. That's a good acting job.
Yes, it was. First quarter, 0-0, San Francisco and Miami. And once again this week, as you know, the league, the NFL, is experimenting with replay and the reviewable plays, the plays of possession or touching, plays governed by the sideline, and the number of players on the field. The only difference is today it's 60 seconds. Last week it was 90 seconds. Now it's down to 60. There's the replay box. The officials will come over and look in there, and if something needs to be adjusted, they'll use that instrument to adjust it from.
Yeah, and again, they're only doing that in preseason.
Right.
No matter what the results are in the preseason, they will not use it in regular season.
They're just experimenting.
They
Again,
have one on
Marino.
both sides of the field.
Marino. On first down, it's Jabbar. Straight ahead, up just shy of midfield.
They get right in there behind Richmond Webb and Mark Dixon. You talk about guys that have been surprises in training camp. Here's one, this Mark Dixon, this left guard of the Miami Dolphins. This guy right here, he's been a pleasant surprise. He played for 4 years in Canada. Didn't know exactly what they got, and they said, this guy came in here and started, and watch out, they're just running right in there behind him. He gets a pretty good block on Chris Dolman.
They like what they got.
They do a really good job of staying on their blocks. Conversely, the 49ers aren't getting off their blocks.
Second and
The
3.
49ers are doing a good job of staying on Miami's blocks.
Two tight ends set up. Jordan takes the pass from Marino and gets the Dolphin first down.
John, I watched this Miami Dolphin team the first preseason game against the Washington Redskins, and they looked as sharp as I've seen them. And Marino looked really sharp. And with the new offense, I'm surprised at how fast they've embraced all that.
Marino hasn't played much.
No, and Marino being a 14-year veteran, I think he's going to embrace any kind of football quickly.
Two tight ends set up. Jabbar the carry. Across the 49er 45 to about the 43.
Yeah, we talked about getting off your block. Now, I want you to watch Tubbs right here, 55. See, because now he has to get off the block, but the way to do that first is to deliver a blow. Watch, he's going to attack the guard. Dick's inside right. Boom. Right inside. Now get the separation, and now you can come off. Dixon did a good job of kicking his rear end over, but Fields did a good job of sticking his rear end in the hole.
Yeah, but it looked like Dixon wasn't expecting Fields to hit him. He looked like he was looking for something else, and he was surprised by that.
Second down. Marino quickly trying to get to his tight end, Drayton.
Yeah, you see that? The thing that made him do that quickly was Tim McDonald. Right. Tim McDonald's a strong safety, of course, for the 49ers, and you're going to see him coming a blitz. We never used to see a lot of this, but here's Tim McDonald, and you see him sneak up there and hit that hole perfectly, and he was right in Dan Marino's face.
Yeah, and you start doing things like that, you have to cover for him. If you notice, Tubbs had to run all the way across the formation to pick up that tight end. That's the big thing that you're seeing on the last couple of years, are those defenses where everybody's going everywhere.
Yeah, some unsound dogs.
It is
what they are.
Marino shotgun. Pass complete down to the 31.
I'll tell you, that is beautiful. I mean, there's a lot of great quarterbacks in this league, and Brett Favre's fun to watch. Steve Young, John Elway. But I think if you want to look at a picture-perfect quarterback, to me it's always been Dan Marino. I mean, how many guys can throw that ball with that ease into that defense and make it a completion like
Just
that?
watch him in practice. It's a joy to just watch him warm up.
Yeah, he's like hard or something.
Yeah. Jabbar again. Ricochets down to the 25.
Yeah, I kind of like these first 20 plays. We were talking to Dan Marino last night, and he says he likes it too because they were given on Thursday. Jimmy Johnson gave them the first 20 plays they're going to run. So then they were able to practice it on Friday. They walked through it out here yesterday on Saturday, and then everyone can picture what the first part of the game is going to look like.
And I think that's the best part of football. You play the game before you ever get there.
Play it in your head.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure everybody does. I think Marino does. Jabbar again. To the 25. Couple.
You know, I haven't counted them, but I'm sure someone is counting because we're talking about the script and the newness to it of the Miami Dolphins. And Marino said that the first 20 plays are going to be 10 passes and 10 runs. I'm not counting. I don't have one of those things in my head, but it seems like to me there's been more runs than passes.
Yeah, it does.
There it is right there.
You want him counted? You got him.
Okay. So anyways, halfway there. So he has to make up for some passing here to balance that thing, huh?
3rd and 3.
Like the old teeter-totter.
And back in the shotgun. Marino moving people around. No blitz. Marino hits. First down yardage. Flag on the play.
And the flag is downfield in that area where the cornerback and the wide receivers is going to be a defensive holding because
Thomas down there, 85.
Yeah, it was away from the area where the ball was thrown. It was down here in the left corner.
Now you got Walker on a hold.
It's still in the left corner.
Yeah, and that's where Darnell Walker is. Again, the ball wasn't thrown to his man, so it can't be pass interference.
That official hasn't moved that made the call. He's still standing on the flag.
He's proud of that call. He liked it. So no, he thought it was good.
This is a good call, and I'm sticking with it.
No matter where it is.
Not only sticking with it, I'm going to stand on it.
38 defense, 5 yards, first down.
Well, it wasn't his.
And here it is, but he was proud of that call. There's Darnell Walker. See, he gets his hands on the receivers pretty good.
Got him on the face mask.
Yeah, but it's going to be right there. You see, he let that first thing go.
Right.
And then he called him the second time.
He gave him the 5 yards, but after that, he got it.
First and 10 at the 20. Marino has time. Gets it to Jordan, and Jordan gets inside the 15.
Yeah, we were watching, Matt. I know you and Pat were down there in the field before the game, and I was watching Marino and all the hardware he has on. I mean, he has braces on both knees, and he has a brace on his ankle for his Achilles. Right here, you can see that's on his right ankle.
Look how little this one is.
Yeah, that's what they call atrophy, huh?
Yeah,
Key
that's what
thing,
it is.
there's no hardware on that right arm, though.
No, I know it. I mean, the hardware's on the legs, but now he uses those feet to get him in position to be able to make those plays.
Jabbar to the 10. Fumble, and the 49ers appear to have it. His second of the day.
Oh, I know what Jimmy Johnson's thinking now because we're talking about dress rehearsal. You want your team to look good. You want your team to look sharp. And this is one thing that you never, ever want.
That's Bryant Young.
Yeah, he has that ball in front of him, and that's where you have to have it. He had it pretty well protected. Bryant Young just knocked it out.
Slapped it out.
49ers take over. There, the officials looking at the replay monitor. It's 60 seconds. That's all they can take. Ron Blum, the referee, just took off the headset.
I think they have to stay with the call.
Yeah,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar fumbled it.
Miami is denied. The ball was out. It is ruled a fumble. There is no timeout
but I'm
charge
sure
for
this one's got
Miami.
to stand.
Now here's the point, and watch Bryant Young. You know, it's one thing to get blocked. It's another thing to stay blocked. And he got off the ball. We were talking about getting off the block, and then he was able to get that left hand in there and knock that ball out. I don't think there was any question that it was a fumble.
I was listening to the pregame show, and Howie Long was saying that Bryant Young is maybe the best defensive tackle in the NFL, and I agree with that. And he showed there. I mean, not only did he make a play, he got off that block, but causing the fumble.
Owens took the pass from Steve Young. Everybody was fooled for a moment.
Well, and because you have Steve Young's legs, so you start everything going this way, and then you bring him and use those feet the other way. And when we've said this, you know, it'll never change in football. One of the toughest routes in all of football to cover is a crossing receiver.
Yeah, because there's two areas that you can use your speed. You can run away from a guy on an up, going up the field, and the other place is going across the field.
First and 10. Young pump fake up the middle, wide open is Owens. And Owens is headed for the end zone, and the 49ers will take the lead.
Said there's two places you can use your speed. One was going across. Owens did it on that bootleg. The second place is just going straight up the field, and Owens did it on that one.
You know, Owens used his speed, but Steve Young used his eyes. He was able to see the whole field and come back and see that busted play.
And watch the defense get locked in stupidity. That's the other thing. I mean, there's no way that you can let a man just run right through your defense. As the zone look, the safety goes the wrong way, and Terrell Owens just runs straight up the middle of it. I mean, if you're going to play zone, you have to have every zone covered and keep everything in front of you.
And you got to play zone. You can't run with anybody.
And there has to be someone in that zone in the middle. There always has to be a guy in the deep middle.
The extra point by Bexford is good, and the 49ers lead it 7-0. The touchdown pass from Steve Young to Terrell Owens.
Fox NFL Special is brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light, who reminds you the three most important words are, hey, beer, man. By Visa, the official card of the NFL. It's everywhere you want to be. By Nike. And by Radio Shack. You've got questions, we've got answers.
$7-0 San Francisco. 3:45 left in the first. Young is 4 out of 4, 99 yards, 1 touchdown. You keep thinking he can't get any better, and he keeps getting better. As Avery to return the kickoff. Out into the dirt to about the 27, where the Dolphins will take over. Took advantage of the fumble.
Free safety, Brock Marion right here, and you wonder why he wasn't in the middle, why he was over there. Watch him here. Watch what Steve Young does here. He pumps him over there. Brock Marion turns and goes that way, and that lets Terrell Owens getting in the middle.
Yeah, watch Young's head and then watch the pump. And two things here. First of all, protection is good, so he can do that. He looks, it draws everybody this way, and then he has the experience to be able to come back and make that throw.
Well, you wonder why there was no one in the middle. Steve Young made sure there was no one in the middle.
This is John Avery at running back down. And he gets his first carry. He's quick. Been hurt for a couple of weeks, but now says he's all ready.
Well, he was the Miami Dolphins' #1 draft choice, and you know, Jimmy Johnson had a number of goals in this game. One, he wanted to play his starters into the second half, but he wanted Avery to play with him. And he said that this is really going to be the first time he's seen Avery. He said in every drill, every running drill they've had, he said not only do they not tackle him, but he said he has a 7-on-7 drill, run drill, and he said some they don't even touch him. No one even touches him.
see what this Miami Dolphin offense is doing is because the San Francisco defense runs so well and gets to the ball so well, they're going to try to use it against them. And
you have to get that guy blocked.
That guy. And so they'll start in and get everybody going, and then Avery will look for the spot in that cutback. They try to use their flow against them. Start one way and now bring it back. Look for that hole and run through. And that puts pressure on your backside of trying to hold that backside point. If he can't get there, you got yourself a spot.
You know, Bryant Young is one of those guys that can slide with them as they slide, then pull them up and still get back.
Marino from the shotgun, pass complete. Jordan again. And that's enough for a Dolphin first down.
You were saying earlier, Matt, and I agree with that totally, that the toughest thing to really cover is a crossing pattern. Because if it's man-to-man like it is here, you always run away from man. And you see Jordan just ran away from Langham on that one. If it's a zone, you come under control and find the holes in a zone. And either way, it's a tough pass to defend.
I'd say it's even tougher when you miss your jam like that.
Two tight ends set up. Avery still a running back. He'll get the carry. The 49ers are able to do something the Dolphins said they couldn't do.
And
they can hit him.
You know, and people say, oh, why do you need preseason? You don't need preseason games. They don't mean anything. And that's exactly why. I mean, in practice, the guy looks so good they can't even touch him. Well, they're not playing full go. Here they're playing full go.
You know, I always thought that's what training camp was for, was to get into hitting shape.
That's the thing. I mean, you know, we were talking last week of the Green Bay Packers and Dorsey Levin. I mean, he could be running hills, doing push-ups and stuff. But, man, that's not the same as putting shoulder pads on and headgear getting hit. And hitting.
Second and long. And Avery gets the carry. And they found him again.
I think he got tackled by Drayton's foot. Looks like he tripped.
Well, you know, one thing, the first thing that rookies always learn is that the game in the NFL, the pro game, is faster. And the second thing is a really better tackle. I mean, there's not a lot of poor tacklers on defense, so you don't have a lot of time to dance around. Sometimes in high school and college, you can dance around, run back and forth, you know, do pirouettes and stuff. In pro football, it's boom, you got to hit that hole and get in and out of it.
Every now and then you get some ballroom dancing in there.
Dancing Chris, the ballroom, yes. That's the end of the first quarter with the score San Francisco 7, Miami nothing. This Fox NFL special will continue after these messages and a word from your local Fox station. First play of the second quarter. Miami has the ball at their own 40-yard line. San Francisco leading 7-0. Marino, his longest service of the preseason, and he'll play up and through the half. Right there to McDuffie. That's vintage Marino.
That really is. And that is, it's funny, you could make all the changes you want, but you still come back to what you do well, and Dan Marino does this good, and O.J. McDuffie does that well.
Yeah, and R.W. McQuarters, the rookie #1 draft choice of the 49ers, is learning what pro football is all about, because he really had pretty good coverage on McDuffie. I mean, he was up there man-to-man. He wasn't doing badly, and then, boom, O.J. gets away from him, and the ball's right there.
That ball was on the way long before he made that last cut. Timeout, Miami. 7-0, San Francisco leads. Back in San Francisco, the 49ers leading 7-0. In baseball today in Pittsburgh, McGuire hit number 53, and in Chicago, Sammy Sosa hit number 50. So they both might break the record.
You know, last week you asked me who it was going to be, and I couldn't give you an answer because probably of that right there.
Yeah,
both on a tear.
But now you're probably going to say McGuire, though. I said I don't think either one of them are going to break it, and I still don't.
I still don't either. But Matt said McGuire. Marino, the pass was on the money. to Stanley Pritchett, the fullback, I beg your pardon.
He wasn't ready for a Marino ball, that's for sure.
No.
I mean, there's a couple of balls that are really hard to catch in the sling. I think a Favre ball, a Marino ball, an Elway ball, some of those things get on you so fast. If you're not ready or used to it, you can forget it.
You know, he reminds me so much the way he throws to Joe Namath. You know, that shoulder thing and that turn and that rotation. And
same part of the country.
Yeah, and I think before Marino, I always thought Joe Namath was the prettiest throwing quarterback I've ever seen, and now I think Dan Marino is.
Like throwing darts, and Marino has to call a timeout.
And Dan's frustrated with that, as is Jimmy Johnson. Because that's one of those things where you have a different look defensively, and it just bought you a timeout.
They have one left. This week on Fox Saturday Baseball, the run for the record continues as Mark McGwire tries to inch closer to history. When the Cardinals host the division-leading Braves plus the regional action. Coverage begins at 12:30 Eastern and Pacific within the zone this week on Fox. And it's not inching closer for either one of those guys, Sammy Sosa or Mark McGwire. They're both running.
How many did McGwire get this past week? Is that 6? We talked about it a week ago in Green Bay. I said I didn't think so. And I think
at least 5. It might be 6.
I think it is 6, and they got 33 games left.
Yeah, 53 at 6. Yeah. 47.
Well, that's popping them out of the old yard, huh?
Marino from the shotgun. No blitz. Marino whips it outside, incomplete. Lamar Thomas, the intended receiver.
Out at Maggie's window. When we talked to Dan Marino last night, he was talking about their script and the first 20 plays, and he said it's going to start off with a run. The second play is going to be a pass. The first 20 is going to be 10 runs and 10 passes, and they stayed pretty close to the script.
It's 3rd and 10.
And this has to be a pass, huh?
I would think so. Certainly looks like it. 3 wide receivers. Marino in the shotgun. Going deep.
Oh,
Marino with a strike to Jordan. Touchdown, Miami.
What a pretty throw.
That was a beautiful throw, and he's done that 3 or 4 times this first half because the coverage is there. It's not like a guy's running wide open all by himself. Watch Jordan out here. I mean, the thing is, he's going to come here, and they're playing a zone. They're looking back, but they have the corner underneath. They have the safety coming over, and Dan Marino drops it in there perfectly. Yep. Although I don't know why Antonio Langham, the corner, if you're up there, you got to get a bump on that guy.
Cardinal sin. Don't get beat in that deep zone. Never let the guy get behind you. You got the safety over the top, but he can't let him run through.
Mares extra point ties it. Flag on the play. 7-7, but let's see about the penalty.
The other thing is when those corners get up there and they're playing press and they're playing tight, you got to get a bump. You just can't let that guy go off the line like that unhit.
Holding against Miami. So Murray will have to try a little further out.
60 offense, 10 yards, repeat the try.
What's wrong with Ron Blum's mic? You think does it sound muffled to you?
Yes, it does.
Huh? I think you got a little muffle going here.
That makes it a 30-yard extra point. Didn't really matter, did it?
See right here, if you're up there, you got to get some kind of, but you have to knock the guy off the pass route a little.
Especially when that guy's throwing the ball, so you know it's going to be there. 7 the score in San Francisco. 13:58 left in the first half. The book on Marino. Chuck Levy is back deep for the 49ers as Murray is set to kick off. Short kick. At the 12 is Levy. Flag on the play. A lot of speed by Chuck Levy, but not much yardage.
Speed don't do you much good when you're running sideways.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, and on that
That's
kickoff,
always been true, you know.
on that kickoff return, you got to get it up and you got to get it going forward. You can't be going sideways.
See if we can hear this call.
I think we'll hear it. We'll hear it muffled. I think. Ron Blum,
Got too much equipment to be a muffled.
You know, he's a pro golfer.
Ron Blum?
Yeah, he's a teaching pro. Yeah.
Holding 52 with the receiving team during the return. Half the distance to the goal. First down, San Francisco.
Got things worked out.
It was a nice clear call by Ron Blum, the golf professional.
Much to
teaching pro.
Yeah, much to Jim Schwantz's dismay.
Yeah, Swanson saying, what? The guy has a muffled mic. When all those other guys get penalty, I get one and it's clear as a bell.
They always get their Schwantz. That's what I always say.
Owens in motion. That's Garrison Hurst. Nothing doing for Garrison.
You know, one thing about a Jimmy Johnson team is you look, they're always going to have the 4 linemen here, and then the linebackers stack, and they're going to get everyone to the ball. I mean, one thing that he's going to have in any defense is speed. He's going to attack the line of scrimmage and always try and swarm the ball. That time he got a little penetration there, and that helped. He had a strong safety,
brought their safety, Jackson. What you just talked about, they cover their backers so they can run to use that speed.
Yeah, and then they don't need real big guys, and that's why Zach Thomas is such a good player.
That's Garrison Hurst again. And very little yardage. Maybe they got back in the plus column.
There's Zach Thomas right there. You have to like him, man.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just the kind of guy he is and his attitude. And, you know, you wonder how can a guy at 5'10", 230 pounds play in this league? And well, they say he's 5'11", 235. Yeah, they're lying. But you know, how can he play in this league? Just because he wants to.
Exactly.
Basically, it's because he wants to.
And he studies and he's smart and he knows where he's going. He knows everything around him. That's the kind of player that I like.
Did you see when they showed the shots of linemen, you couldn't even see Zach.
Second down. Screen pass. Hurst gets it out past the 25, about the 28, and up for first down. Brock Marion.
Yep. You know, that's a perfect play on a blitz. Yep. And especially, it's going to be, here's a blitz is going to come, and the screen is going to be to this side. And when you throw a screen to the side of the blitz, that is a perfect call. You don't know that they're going to blitz, but watch it. If you can hold them out here, sneak your back out here, get a block right there that Ray Brown did, you're going to spring a guy because they've already blitzed.
And Zach Thomas knew it too.
Yep.
You've got to get out there right away.
Yep.
But Ray Brown did a good job of getting enough position on a slip and able to make it go.
Steve Young back to throw it. Incomplete and a flag on the play. Herb Smith, the intended receiver. The backup tight end.
And that's going to be on Calvin Jackson too, because he had pretty good coverage, and then I think he just hit him just before the ball got there. Jimmy Johnson's pointing against the 49ers. Calvin Jackson's pointing against the 49ers.
Jimmy Johnson was saying that that's an uncatchable ball. What Jimmy's trying to do.
Jimmy's what do what?
He was going over his head like that's an uncatchable ball.
Yeah, but that doesn't make any difference. If the guy doesn't tackle him, he would have fine. That was very catchable, yeah.
You know,
Jimmy's on the other side of the field. He can't see it over here or anything.
He'll throw any signal he can.
Yeah, that's just a coaching thing. You always say, nah, it was you always make up something and say
I
no.
thought he was smoothing his hair. Hurst again. Zach Thomas.
Yeah, here's a couple plays ago, and we see this more and more, man. I think when they've had success, going for the ball, but a lot of times that becomes the number one thing they do. They're going to strip, and then in going to strip, they're not good tacklers anymore.
Which is opposite of what it used to be. You always get the hit first, and second man in goes for the strip.
Second and 9. For Owens, who didn't quite break clear soon enough.
You see, Brock Marion was trying, with his body, to widen him with Robert Jones and get as much width as he could, and that ball was thrown Was he able to turn his head around in time? He had a chance at it. But watch inside. Robert Jones and then Brock Marion, they're going to try to widen him. See, get outside. And then the ball has to be perfect because you have to elude those two defenders with the throw.
Yeah, but when Brock Marion has help coming from the inside, he better not end up on the inside too, because you had two in and none out.
Here's Young retreating the throw up into the pocket, and he's going to take off.
He can still do this.
Yes, he can. He slides.
That's not right.
He slides a little better than he used to.
I think he got kicked in the head, or awfully close to getting kicked in the head. That was what he complained about last year. He said
after the slide.
Yeah, they say if you go feet first, they can't touch you. He said, but I go feet first and they still touch me, so I might as well go head first.
I think that's Lorenzo Brumell, the rookie.
Yeah, it is.
He takes off and runs. Here's Brumell at 91 chasing him. Now he's down.
Hey, it's a two.
They can't do that. You can't kick a man in the head when he slides and he's down.
You can if you get away with it. Flag on the play is Chuck Levy.
How can they not see the kick in the head?
I don't know. You got a muffled mic.
Yeah, but that's the same thing. Remember against Tampa Bay in the first game of the regular season? That same thing. Steve Young got a concussion because he got kneed in the head.
Tripping, 65 offense, 10 yards, repeat first down.
Ray Brown.
We just talked about it, and it is here. Steve Young's had a number of problems with concussions. And the one that I was talking about is this next one against Tampa Bay. You see Warren Sapp gets him here, and then watch as he's down right there. He gets kneed in the head. That's where he got the concussion.
Yep. And Warren Sapp was quick to say, it wasn't me. All I did was tackle him.
And of course, but that was a game that they also lost Jerry Rice in that same game.
Young back in the pocket. Wheels it to J.J. Stokes.
You know, John, we're talking about Steve Young and getting the throw off and getting time. And lost it all. That Dave Fiore on the left side of that offensive tackle was quietly passing this first quarter test.
Yeah, and he's playing against Jason Taylor, who we think is probably of the Dolphin defensive rushers is probably their best pass rusher.
Certainly the quickest.
Yes. Like you say, but Fiore is an undersized tackle, and he's going to do all right anyway against an undersized defensive end. You know, it's going to be important when he gets an oversized defensive end.
Somebody jump.
And see, you saw it right there. Yeah. You see how Taylor tried to jump in and Fiore caught him and in. When you get a big guy, one of those 300-pounders who could move, now that's a little different game.
Yeah, Fiore's from Hofstra, and I remember when he first came here with the 49ers 4 years ago as a tight end.
Ball start, 83 offense, 5 yards, repeat second down.
J.J. Stokes.
Now here's Fiore right here. There's Jason Taylor right there. See, Brumell jumped inside. Now, Taylor's going to try to use just a little bit of that Charles Haley jump inside. Get him off balance up top. Now watch him get caught. See, there's the catch, and there's the throw.
Yeah, see, and Fiore is strong enough to do that to Taylor.
When you get caught with both feet off the ground, that's not a good spot. Young wheels it high for Owens. A little out of his reach. Madison on the cover.
Yeah, we were talking about Fiore. He's from Hofstra. He was recommended by Jim Burt. Jim Burt lifted weights with him. And he said, here's a big, strong guy you ought to sign. The 49ers used him as a tight end, and then they let him go. He was with the Jets for a while. Then they made an offensive lineman out of him, and he's becoming a pretty good pass protector.
That's a Jim Burt scouting service right there?
Yeah, the Jim Burt. The one things you can do, an old nose tackle, blue-collar guy, bring the lunch bucket.
1-800-CALL-BURT.
Pass intended again for Owens, a little bit behind him and bounced through his arm.
You know, it's going to be interesting when Jerry Rice comes back. Yes. You know, they say, Mariucci was saying, and Jerry Rice was saying that he's going to start in the first regular season game against the New York Jets. Okay, now that's all well and good, but of the other receiver, Terrell Owens or J.J. Stokes, who's not going to start?
I agree. He's got to make a decision now.
In my mind, the guy that should start with Jerry Rice is Terrell Owens.
Tommy Thompson back deep to punt for the 49ers. Been somewhat erratic. Jordan signals spare catch, makes it at the 12, where the Dolphins will take over with the game tied at 7 apiece. Beautiful afternoon. Always been a big sports fan, not just football. Bill Cosby. Tennis he loves.
Over the years, we've seen Bill Cosby back at Philadelphia Eagle games.
He went to Temple, of course.
And then, when Temple would play there on Saturday, we'd see him at Temple games.
Jabbar is back at the running back spot now.
Well, you know what he's doing? There's the Cleveland franchise is up for some kind of auction, I guess, or bid, and Bill Cosby is part of one of the groups that is bidding for that new Cleveland franchise. In fact, there's 7 of them, and he's in a group that includes Don Shula. And they met last week in Atlanta, and all 7 groups gave a half-hour proposal, and they're going to know in September which group gets the new Cleveland franchise.
It's not that far away. Here's Marino. Intended for McDuffie. Incomplete.
So maybe Cosby's here scouting. Maybe he could hire Jim Burt. I mean, Jim Burt found Fiore.
Jim Burt.
Yeah, Cosby's here. We ought to put the 2 of them together.
Yeah, Jim Burt is part of a group.
Yeah, we could broker that deal.
Yeah.
About Jim Burt. I always thought that Steve Mariucci looked like
he got the same hair.
Yeah, skinnier
he got the same hair as Jim.
Yeah.
Jim Burt was a lot of things, and one of them was he was a bulldog when he played. He'd bite anything put in front of him.
I think when you define nose tackle, you know what's a nose tackle? Jim Burt.
Marino.
There's a flag.
Jordan was the intended receiver. There's a flag down on the sideline.
Yeah. John, I think this is one of those
Jordan
things.
just pulled something.
We were just talking about bumping down the field and who is at fault. And at the end, it looks like Walker got the last bump.
Yeah, that's the thing. If the offense bumps, then it's offensive pass interference. If the defense bumps, it's defensive pass interference. But the one they have the tough one is when they both.
Defense. First down, Miami.
Just watching Charles Jordan, you're going to watch him up top right here.
I remember he pulled something.
In the pregame, he did something.
Did he?
Yeah, right at the end, there was a little bit of a bump, and that's what the official who's right there saw it.
Yeah.
Darnell Walker. I was watching him in the pregame. He was getting ready to just throw some pass skeleton with Marino, and he tried to do a quick start, and he collapsed. And I'm wondering if that didn't have something to do with this right here.
He collapsed on that one.
Yeah.
It looked like he went to push off.
Collapsed in the pregame.
And then lo and behold, he collapses in the game. He practiced it in the pregame.
Practice makes perfect.
Marino back to throw. Gets away from Barker. Pass caught by McDuffie. This is 97. Yatil Green, their #1 draft choice of a year ago. A knee injury.
They needed Yatil Green.
Yep.
He's a big, fast guy, and he just did his knee again this week. Same knee, same injury.
Yeah, that was in practice on Wednesday. He's out for the season.
Marino gets to Jabbar.
That's good play. That's good sound defense right there.
Antonio Langham.
I mean, when you look at from up here, you can see everybody on somebody, and the free guy comes.
Well, you have force and support, and when the ball starts out there, the outside guy that comes up is the force guy. Watch Antonio Langham right here. He's force. He has to get up. Don't let him get outside. He not only comes in a good force position, but he also makes a tackle for a loss.
Oh, nice.
3rd and 2.
The force guy is the outside guy. The inside guy coming up is the support guy.
Marino looked outside quickly, gets it to McDuffie, and he is wrestled down shy of a first down about a yard by McWaters.
That is a great play by McWaters.
It is
right
because
there.
McDuffie has to know where that first down is, and he can't let McWaters keep him out because here's the first down. He has to get to that point. He can't stay short of that thing. And McWaters didn't let him.
That's great. Hey, he got beat the first time because it was a Marino open ball. Same thing, stayed right on it.
Thank you.
This is Wilmsmeyer back to punt for Miami. Good kick, handled by McWaters, who lets it bounce, and it goes into the end zone. They'll bring it back to the 20. So with 5:40 left to play in the first half, it's a tie score. Miami 7, San Francisco 7. First half, 7-7 score here today in baseball. In Pittsburgh, we told you earlier, McGuire hit number 53, and now Sammy Sosa has hit another one, so he's got 51 now. And coming up at the half, you'll see those home runs. JB, Howie, Terry, and Chris. What happened in football over the weekend? As Mark Edwards gets the carry, you'll see those home runs. As I said, the injury to Jason Sehorn, an update on that. And just to let you know what's happening around the NFL, this is a big weekend in preseason, as all the teams usually having the same philosophy and looking at the starters, the regulars that are going to be playing a little bit longer this week. Next week you play another one, and you hope no one gets hurt. And you rest them as Young throws behind Terrell Owens. A report on Jordan, who's had such an outstanding first half, is a groin strain, and he will not return for the Dolphins.
That's the thing you probably talked about, that he probably brought that into the game, had that in training camp. And you're so right about the teams. I think if fans want to know where a team is or how a team's going to do this year, I think that part of that evaluation could just be looking at how the teams in the NFL did in the first half of this week's games.
Young gets it in the slot to J.J. Stokes.
You know, Pat, I was expecting more of that right there in this game. Because of what you said earlier, with the 49er receivers so big, and Madison and Buckley are not real big guys, I mean, that's a height disadvantage, something you have to take advantage of.
And all he has to do, the minute that he gets that step inside in that slant, especially to Steve Young's left, that ball's going to be there. Now, what you do when you're throwing that slant, you got to get that defensive end down. You see Dave Fiore, what he does, he cuts his guy to get him down.
Here's Young to throw it again, rolling left. Gets it to Stokes again near another first down. Ball loose.
No whistle. That's live.
49ers appear to have gotten there first.
You know, John, I'm just sitting here thinking, remember last year, the edict came down for the 49ers and Steve Young. Don't take off and run. Stay in the pocket, throw it, protect yourself. But I think this year, first of all, he's healthy, you know, and the second thing is they got Ty Detmer, and I think they feel a little bit better about that whole situation.
Yeah, but the 49ers, they can, they're a lot like Miami in that they talk about running the ball and all that stuff, but the 49er offense is just going to be as good as Steve Young is. The Miami Dolphin offense is just going to be as good as Dan Marino is. Although, we see these big receivers. We know that Jerry Rice is going to be back there, and you hope that he comes back and stays healthy. But even if he doesn't, J.J. Stokes and Terrell Owens are pretty good receivers. In fact, I think they're darn good receivers.
Maybe the best trio in the NFL.
I think some people in Minnesota would give you a run for your money.
I said maybe. Yeah. Coming up on the Visa halftime report, JB, Terry, Howie, and Chris will have first half analysis, bringing you up to date on Jason Sehorn and that unfortunate injury that put him out for the year. Let you know what's happening throughout the NFL. And, of course, the home run update is McGuire hit number 53 and Sosa hit 50 and 51. Some of the other scores. Jets, this was Thursday night. The Jets beat the Giants 27-23 when Sehorn was injured. Pittsburgh over Atlanta. New England beat Washington. Buffalo over Chicago. And Cincinnati beat Detroit. That's not all. Overtime, Minnesota. You were just talking about them, 25-22. 22-21, Kansas City over Jacksonville. San Diego and Ryan Leaf still look awfully good. As outside, attended for Owens. And again, those are the scores. Just to finish it off, Tampa Bay and Oakland play here tomorrow. Play in Oakland, I shouldn't say here. Philadelphia beat Baltimore 31-24. Seattle 31-24 over Arizona. I'm sorry, Baltimore, Philadelphia is Monday night. I was reading backwards.
I still think it's not the final score as much as it is the first half score if you're doing an evaluation.
Young gets it to Owen.
Yeah, I was impressed with Terrell Owens from the first day I saw him. I remember when he was a rookie in training camp, and I went up there to Rockland where the 49ers trained then, and this guy ran by me, and I could just feel his size and his speed and run and catch the ball, and I said, "Oh, I don't know who that guy is." He's going to be a heck of a player.
I remember he called me.
Yeah.
He said, they got a guy, this 81 Terrell Owens. I would start him right now.
Yeah, and I still would. I mean, 3 or 4 years later, I'd still start him right now.
Young, deep, intended for Owens. A heck of a basketball player, too. Ronnie Lott was talking yesterday about playing basketball against him. And all he could do was just shake his head and say, wow.
It's a big kid.
Yeah.
It's a big man.
I mean, he's big and he's strong, and he went to a small school. You know, he went to the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, and so, you know, he wasn't one of those big names coming in, and no one had really heard of him. And when you saw him, I mean, there's some guys that, you know, it takes 2 or 3 years, and you say he's developed into one. There's some guys you look at the first day and you say he is one. That's what Terrell Owens was.
This guy impressed you so much you called Matt, huh?
I called Matt. Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't even call Jim Burton.
Garrison Hurst for the first down, the most effective 49er running play of the first half.
And a nice job by Chuck Levy to be able to do that. I mean, I think when you're a running back and you have room, you better make your yardage. But the guys around you obviously are the ones who get it done. And watch Chuck Levy 32.
I said it was Garrison Hurst. It was not.
It was Garrison Hurst
right
there. It was
nice job right there by Chuck Levy. Because that's one of the things that they're going to try and do is play with a fullback, Mark Edwards, and then sometimes have 2 halfbacks in the backfield like that Chuck Levy there.
Like Young's changing the play. Changed his mind. Got it down to Mark Harris.
And that's what running buys you. I mean, you don't have to run yourself, but just being able to move in that pocket, buy a little more time, let your receivers keep working, and you get wide open guys like that.
2 minutes left in the first half. 40-yard pickup.
Steve Young, and here's what he buys right here. He gets pressure from both ends. He runs out, buys time, and look what that does. That time that he bought let Mark Harris get open downfield like that.
And there's something about a quarterback that they just know where that line of scrimmage is.
Yeah.
They don't know how they do that.
Especially because he's been doing it all his life.
Yeah, you play it a while.
And he looks and he knows. And not only do they know where the line of scrimmage is, the other thing, but they have that clock in their head. I mean, they know. In other words, he knew when he had to get out of there. I mean, he was feeling pressure from both those defensive ends, and you can wait, and then there's a point you have to get your hat.
Young, the fade incomplete, but a flag on the play was intended for Owen.
Buckley had him.
Buckley had him by the arm.
Yeah, he's still bouncing, and Buckley ought to play from the time the ball is snapped until the whistle blows. Once the whistle blows, there's no need bumping after that. You got what they call a mismatch.
Pass interference, 27 defense. Foul occurred in the end zone. First down, San Francisco on the 1-yard line.
That's what happens. You know, you talk about Terrell Owens being so big and so strong.
Yeah.
To be honest, what else could Terrell Buckley do other than that? Because he had to force him, he had to push him, he had to get him out of bounds. And
the only thing left he had to do was complain.
Or keep on bumping.
Nothing there for Edwards. Tried the left side. Got back to the line of scrimmage. that's about it.
This is where the 49ers have a little problem now because, they have little tackles. They got big guards, big center, little tackles, and they don't have really strong blocking tight ends.
And they don't have William Floyd at fullback.
Yeah, so really, goal line is not going to be one of their strengths unless this guy keeps it himself more and more. And I'm not saying he's going to do it now, but as the season goes, I think he will.
Second and goal at the 1. Young. Owens. And he missed him.
Maybe he will now.
That was just not one of his better throws.
Yeah, but I mean, they're just not the type of team that is going to be a power team.
That's it. They're no power.
Well, I mean, they have Ray Brown's a power guy and big old Gogan's a power guy, but when you don't have power at the tackles and the tight end spot, it's tough. Then you got to go to passes like that. That wasn't a bad pass. That was just a deflection
by Burton. Yeah,
got his hand on it.
Third and goal at the 1. Watch number 8. The touchdown to Owens, his second of the day from Steve Young. 49ers recapture the lead.
Terrell Owens can also dance. He'll give you a little celebration, and he'll give you a good dance, and he's a real quiet guy. But we talk about Terrell Owens and being so big and so strong. And when you're big and strong, you're just a great target down there in the goal line. You're a great target everywhere. You stay a target. You walk around a target. You're a target street club.
Nice to see us. You're a target.
Yeah, big old target.
Next for the extra point is good. It's 14-7.
Tell you one thing, Steve Young knew where he wanted to go because he is the target. And he stayed with them the whole time. Just come back. I know where I'm going. A little more time. Here's the ball. Go get it. He knows he has a target back there, and he knows he has a dance instructor. Remember in practice the other day?
Yeah.
He was talking about
Terrell Owens is a guy that does that. Here's the big play. We go back to, we know what the touchdown was, but here's the big play in the drive where Steve Young, you see at this point here, he feels pressure. Now he feels pressure from those ends. That clock goes off. Now he knows where the line of scrimmage is, and because he had the time down there, Mark Harris could do what he did up on top.
12 plays, 80 yards. They kept the ball 4.5 minutes. Young is 11 out of 18, 2 touchdowns, both to Owens. Almost 200 yards. I wonder if he'll come back and play some more in the second half.
I would think so. I think that one of the things that both coaches want to get out, one of the things you do is you want to play a half, then you want to go in at halftime and make your halftime adjustments and then come out and put them into use. So I would think that the starters will come out and at least start the third quarter on both sides.
It was time to make somebody miss. They didn't make the kicker miss. Saw perhaps a moment ago a promo for the 70s show. That cast was here. That show premieres tonight here on Fox at 8:30 Eastern. That's 70s.
That's us to see that. Someone tell us what to do.
They said someone tell us what to do. So I told them to do push-ups.
And they all tried.
Well, not all of them, but a few of them did. They did 4 of them got down and tried push-ups.
With one arm.
What with one arm? That's a heck of a cast.
Well, it didn't work.
It was kind of wobbly.
Marino fires complete.
That's a good shot.
That is Orande Gadsden.
He's a guy they like.
Yeah.
He played in the Arena League. Big target.
He kind of looks like Terrell Owens in that regard. He's a big, strong guy.
You can't be that big, way over 220 pounds, and wear a single-digit number.
Nah, it looks bad. Makes your shoulder pads look little.
Make him look like a kicker, really.
Gadsden again.
Yeah, look at him.
That's a bad push-up.
That's pathetic.
No, it's
right
not
there.
bad. They said, what would she do? Here's the best push-up right there.
Yeah.
What should we do? I said, do some push-up.
Yeah, she's the one.
But he's going to try one-handed.
One-handed, yeah.
No.
Okay, let's see if you can do
That looks more like the 90s show.
That takes place close to Green Bay. It's outside of Milwaukee.
Here's Marino back out of the shotgun, firing deep again, incomplete, intended for McDuffie this time.
That's bad by McDuffie. You got to get both hands up.
Coming up at the half again, J.B. Terry Howie and Chris Collinsworth. Update on the Jason Sehorn injury of Thursday night.
What was your take on that one, John? Putting Sehorn back there.
The risk wasn't worth the reward. I mean, and I said that before. I'm not second guessing, but I thought if you're going to play someone, he's an all-pro player. You don't put him on kickoff return. If you want to do punt return or offense maybe, but there's no way that I would have had him on a kickoff return. Kickoff return, you get the ball in 20 if you do nothing. That's not a big thing.
Marino down the middle, incomplete. McDuffie, the intended target.
McDuffie on that play before that reached out with one hand, and I remember when I was coaching, we had Fred Blitnikoff, who had great hands, and we're talking about what the definition of great hands are, and it was two hands working together, that any time one hand would go, the other hand would go with it. And Fred used to say you could tell when someone had bad hands when they just reached out with one hand, that they both have to work together.
There's Dwight Clark.
There's a guy who worked both hands together.
He did.
I can remember that Dallas Cowboy game in that end zone. They still call that play here the catch.
Never forget it.
Joe Montana to Dwight Clark right down in that end zone to our left.
Right over Ed Jones' outstretched hands. And he had to get over a big target when he got over Too Tall Jones. Right down there.
Yeah, right here. Too Tall Jones was here. Montana was right here. Here was Jones. Here was Clark. Boom. Montana throws it in there to Clark.
Like he was throwing it away.
And that was the start of it all.
That was the start of it all.
They haven't looked back here in San Francisco since that.
Well, and the one thing, you say, what's the common denominator? And one common denominator over the years has been Eddie DeBartolo that's still here because Carmen Policy's not. But the other thing has been great quarterbacking. I mean, they had a ride of Joe Montana, and then when they finished riding Joe Montana, they've ridden Steve Young. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens when they don't have the quarterback.
Who they're going to strap it on next?
Young had a screen pass called, but the Dolphins had it read, so he threw it away.
Steve Young looks like he's having fun again.
Yeah, he does.
When we were talking to him the other day, he said that the last 2 years, I didn't even know this, but he said he had tendinitis in his left elbow for 2 years. He said he had doctors look at it, and the doctor looked at it one time and checked it and said, well, that'll be 18 months. And he said it was 18 months to get better.
You know what I mean? He looks better, though. Just the way he handles himself, his outlook, everything.
And his eyes, he looks like he's fresh and happy again, right?
That's the end of the first half with the score. With San Francisco 49ers 14, the Dolphins 7. This Fox NFL special will continue with J.B. Howie, Terry, and Chris with the Visa halftime report after these messages and a word from your local Fox station. At Millen. And as we said at the top of the broadcast, both coaches had told us this was a dress rehearsal, that the regulars would play longer, and they've been true to their word. John, what have you seen so far?
I think two things. One, on the 49ers side, I think they have to feel pretty good because they've been solid in all areas. They've been solid with their offense, running and passing. They've been solid with their defense. They've been solid on special teams. Now, Miami, looks pretty good as a team, but they really haven't been solid. I mean, if you think of, they had a couple of fumbles on offense, and then they had that drop coverage where Brock Marion got faked out and Terrell Owens ran right down the field. So a couple of those things, but the good news about that for the Dolphins is those things are coachable. Those are things you can straighten out.
And that's the thing that impressed me. The other thing that hit me with this Miami Dolphins team is their offensive line, which I didn't think they'd be able to get it to this point that fast. We were talking about it last night, and watching it now in this game, they're playing pretty well together.
You know, I think just in the first half, I think that the offensive line played better at making holes than the running backs did at running through the hole. You know, that includes Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then later when they brought in Avery, I didn't feel that, I mean, it looked like there were some holes there, but they didn't get up and into them quickly.
Decisive. Got to be more decisive and hit that gear, especially with Avery. What they're talking about is that fast. You really didn't see it.
You know, I think it all still boils down that these are going to be two offensive teams, and you know, they both want to run the ball more. They both want balance, but and I said it in the first half, if the 49er offense is going to go, it's going to be Steve Young, and if the Miami Dolphin offense is going to go, it's going to be Dan Marino.
Mares kickoff to Levy, deep in the end zone, and he'll down it there. Put one more question to you two. Given no injuries, are both these two teams playoff teams?
I think so. I would, you know, they were both playoff teams a year ago. I think the 49ers are a much stronger playoff team than Miami Dolphins are, but I think that the Dolphins are a possible playoff team.
Agreed. And then also with the Miami Dolphins, the thing to remember is they're a very young team.
Yeah.
And so they're going to get better as the season goes on.
And anytime you think about playoffs, you have to think about, you know, how do they compare to the other teams in their division.
That's Chuck Levy straight ahead.
I think in their division, the Patriots are probably the best team, but I think after that, I think you could say that the Dolphins are the next best team.
Dolphins and the Jets are right there.
Looks like Marino might be through. That was Craig Erickson, the backup, warming up. And I think in both cases, both teams' playoff chances and their chances ultimately rest on the two quarterbacks.
Yeah, and then you get to that point that, you know, that they have to stay in there, they have to stay healthy. And
Steve Young to Owen, both of them continuing to the third quarter.
Yeah, and that was the thing I think Steve Mariucci wanted to do, what we talked about just before the half, is you go in and you talk about what you did in the first half, you talk about what their defense did, then you make your adjustments, and now you come out and try and work your adjustments.
And it looks like the adjustments they're making went in at halftime and said, you know what, Steve, you and Terrell are doing pretty good. Let's do it again.
I think we got a mismatch. Look for that number 81 when you go back to pass.
There he is again. He can get rid of him better than anybody else. To Owens. Can't come down with it. And a flag on the play. I don't know about this one.
He hung that one up.
That's Stokes, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing that Steve Young can do, is you can let one go. I mean, you can have a free one coming in, and he can take it himself. I mean, there's some. Now, Dan Marino can't do that. And if you let one go, they're going to get him. If you let one go on Steve Young can take care of it himself.
27 defense. First down, San Francisco.
Called against Buckley, and he's physically just not a match for Stokes.
Well, heck, that's 5'9" on 6'5".
Yeah.
That's just a lot. There's a whole nother Buckley on Stokes. They got 1.5 Buckleys against one Buckley.
Yeah, and you see it right here. I mean, it's just that you know that Stokes is just too big.
I thought he played that pretty well. Levy, the ball carrier.
But, you know, he plays it, and it was like that other one they called out in the first half.
Yeah.
He plays it the only way you can play it. I mean, you can't let a guy that big and just keep your hands off him and just let him do whatever he wants to you.
You know, yesterday when the Dolphins came here and did their walkthrough, the wind was blowing about 40 miles an hour. When this game started, it wasn't. The wind wasn't blowing very hard, but now it is. It's picked up considerably. Not like it was yesterday.
I've been coming to this area all my life, and if it's not windy, just stay around a little while and it will be.
There goes Steve Young.
Well, he saw that in a hurry.
Yep.
He went with that pump fake outside to Owens on the slant, one there, and then he saw that whole area was vacated, and he just got on his horse, and heck, he picked up, a good 5-6 yards.
Yeah, because you always have to think of containment. Now watch here, there's no containment out there. Everyone gets packed to the inside, and like you say, you talk about a clock and know where the guys are and know where the first down is. He just feels that, and he sees there's no containment.
It's just presence. And some guys have it, and Steve Young has it.
But he's not a good dancer.
He said it.
appear to be changing the play.
This is two-jet dancer. Look out.
Two-jet dancer. He's holding his hand, too.
Yes, he is.
Steve Young holding his left hand or arm after the throw.
Yeah, well, they let one go. He saw it was going to be a blitz. He audibleized two-jet dancer. And, of course, that's going to be that slant to Terrell Owens.
And I bet you he hit somebody's helmet.
Watch him. You see it right here. And you're right, Pat. I bet he did hit a helmet. You see it right there. It's after he brings that arm down. It was Trace Armstrong.
Yep.
You see, the first thing he grabs is that left wrist.
Defender made a cardinal sin. You let him get inside quick.
Oh, this will be ugly.
Well, you're right. It was ugly. So the extra point goes awry. Watch this.
There's Owens there. The minute he gets that step inside and they have a blitz and there's no one in there, that has to be touchdown.
His third of the day.
He's the MVP of this game.
San Francisco 20, Miami 7, 12-13 left in the third quarter. Steve Young, who banged his left wrist on Trace Armstrong's helmet. And it looks like he might be through for the day. The ice pack on the, what we hope is just a bruise.
He's telling Lindsey how to tape it.
Yeah, there, Lindsey, what the heck are you doing? Wrap it like this.
I think Steve Young would have been through either way.
I think so, too.
Even if he didn't get that injury, he was just going to play that series.
Avery. Our information is that he's fine and he's going to keep playing, but
he'll have a tough time. He's going to have to play right-handed.
Let's reserve judgment on that.
Okay, it's my
20-7, the 49ers over the Dolphins. 12:02 left in the third quarter. Marino is back at quarterback for the Dolphins. Steve Young, the latest word is he could play if need be, but probably not.
Like I said, he could have played right-handed.
He could probably do that. Marino, hand off to Avery, who slips down.
They still have a tough time with Bryant Young. You know, the thing is he not only controls the line of scrimmage, his side of the line of scrimmage, but he also controls this side of the line of scrimmage. And that's the important side of the line of scrimmage.
You know, the thing about Bryant Young is it's not like he's the biggest guy in the world, but he sure is one of the stronger guys. And he plays up the field like you're talking about all the time. He combines his strength and quickness.
He has great leverage. He's always underneath the offensive lineman's shoulder pad.
Pass complete to Pritchett out of the backfield. Picked up about 8. Langham made the stop.
Not a bad job by Antonio Langham. And the most important thing in tackling a guy is just make the tackle. And so many guys think that it's a big hit or that whatever, whatever that is in their minds. But in tackling, as long as he goes down, you did your job.
Yeah, especially in the secondary, because there's no one behind you. I mean, all there is grass and goalposts.
In this case, there's some dirt back there.
Grass, dirt, and goalposts.
Yeah.
Pitcher's mound.
Marino. That's Avery.
There, Avery finally showed some of his quickness that time. You know, I thought in the first half that he was waiting too long to get into the line of scrimmage, but you see him now. He's coming. Maybe they talked about it at halftime, but once he got that ball there, he just darts through that hole. He wasn't waiting any longer. Oh, Merton Hanks. He let him go by and then jumped on the back.
And that's full speed. Sometimes it doesn't look to me like Merton Hanks is too fond of tackling.
Well, he didn't look it on that play. He ended up on the pile.
J.O.P. jump on pile.
Avery slipped, got back up, and slipped slipped again, and then the tacklers were there. No gain. Bryant Young again.
Yeah, we talk about Bryant Young and holding up, and they lost Dana Stubblefield in there, and that's going to be an important thing how Junior Bryant holds up, because this, the strength of any defense to me is always the middle. If you have a strong middle, nose tackle in a 3-man line, 2 tackles in a 4-man line, you're always going to be tough to run on.
2nd and 10. Marino back to throw it. Incomplete. Hank's got a hand on it.
And John, you're talking about down the middle with the defensive being strong, and the guy that they lost that they talked about all week here was Gary Plummer.
Yeah, and I think because Gary Plummer brought that toughness to him, that he was a guy that was that plugger that would do all the physical things that a defense had to do, and then they lose him, and they didn't know that they didn't have the physical guy like him, and there's Gary Plummer right there. He's doing 49er radio right now.
And he says he feels a lot better on Monday and Tuesday.
I was telling him that talking to 49ers, he'd be the MVP this year.
Yeah. Marino down the middle, incomplete.
Was that well anticipated by Tim McDonald? He saw that thing coming. He was sitting back there in the zone, the ball came, and he just attacked it.
There's a guy that plays all areas well. When you run, he plays it well. When you pass, he plays it well. And you see here, he just gets a jump. He's watching Marino all the way, and he sees that ball in the air. And to Tim McDonald, that ball is his ball.
That's his ball. Got a name on it.
The Dolphins have to punt. Wilmsmeyer hangs it high. And into the end zone just barely. They'll bring it back to the 20. 49er bounce puts them back out to the 20 as they lead the Dolphins 20-7. Checking out cleats. The grass unusually long.
If you think of this field, players come from other teams. They always change their cleats to longer cleats. The cleats are always too short because it's always slippery here.
Avery has slipped a lot.
Hey, this is a hard field. This is a hard field to figure out because of the infield. This time of the year, when you do wear the long cleats, it grabs the grass real fine, but then you get into that infield and you're on ice. And I always hated playing on this field when the grass wasn't in the infield. There's a half inch. That's a half-inch one. That's like got somebody's hair in there too.
He was the guy that kicked someone in the head.
How about it?
2nd and 7. Jim Druckenmiller, the quarterback. Owens, the intended receiver.
Now there's a big, strong quarterback. You wonder, he's in his 2nd season now. He was #1 draft choice a year ago out of Virginia Tech and weighs 235 pounds, big, strong, weightlifting guy. And you wonder if he is going to be the next Steve Young.
Well, they drafted him #1. He's got good bloodlines. He's from Northampton, Pennsylvania. His uncle is Dennis Oncott, who's in the College Football Hall of Fame, was a linebacker.
Linebacker from Penn State.
Penn State.
Like yourself.
Oh, really?
I had to get that in.
You're kidding.
Say the one thing Chuck found out in a hurry. They've been working for Steve Young throwing to 81. He's going to give it a whirl too.
He watched that whole first half and he said, well, what worked? He said, I don't know. Anytime that we just take 81 and just put him anyplace, we could run him out, we could run him across, we could run him up, just throw to him, and that seems to work.
And, the touchdown that happened earlier was on 23 Patrick Surtain, a rookie. He's getting a little bit of a lesson out there right now.
Well, they're thinking that Patrick Surtain could possibly be the starting left corner for him.
Levy gets the carry and is pushed back by the Dolphin defense.
Well, he learned a lesson his first time up on that touchdown pass. He jumped to the outside and gave the inside up to Terrell Owens, and that was 6 quick.
What they say is that Surtain practices a lot better than he plays, and Jimmy Johnson thinks that could be a positive thing because he knows that they can do it, and they get in a game, and they're a little step slower because they freeze a little.
Sometimes, though, guys never get over that.
That's right. I would take the opposite. I would take the guy that wasn't wasn't a good practice player and was great in the game. I'll take that guy.
2nd and 8.
You remember Ted Hendricks?
Miller pass complete to Levy. All for not much, if anything. Word on O.J. McDuffie is that he has a bruised knee and will not return to the action.
I think when Dan Marino went out, O.J. McDuffie probably wouldn't have played anyway. Well, you can see that he has that ice pack on that knee.
Well, Jordan, they lost earlier to that groin problem. Now McDuffie with the bruised knee. They're not that deep at wide receiver anyway.
Yeah, that's like having a big old cannon or something and no balls.
Sure, you betcha.
Not enough powder. 3rd and 8. Dolphins show blitz. Druckenmiller, and the pass is picked off. It worked. Picked off by Sean Wooden. That blitz was coming.
Looks like that one kind of floated out there, almost like it was hit or something.
I think,
it fluttered up there.
Well, that's what they try and do with the blitz, is now they try and get the free guy coming straight up the middle so that he can be in his face, and I think that ball was tipped.
Yep. Plus, he was throwing backing up. 49ers 20, the Dolphins 7. 3rd quarter action. Marino still playing. Still the Dolphin quarterback as they operate after that interception. Avery changed his cleats, but he's on that dirt part of the infield.
No, I was just saying we're talking about Dan Marino and all the hardware he wears, and because of that, because he has the right Achilles and both knees, he really has different type of footwork, especially on the running game. I mean, he takes one step up, a short step up with his right foot, and then a long step back.
2nd and 8. Has a man open, wide open is Lamar Thomas.
The nice adjustment by Thomas. That ball was thrown to his outside instead of the inside where he expected it, and he made the adjustment as he's in the air, which that's tough to do. Watch, the ball's thrown back out here to the outside. See the adjustment as he's in the air.
But I'll tell you what, it's easier to do when there's no defender on you.
Yeah.
But where Steve Young can get away from the extra guy and the rush, Dan Marino has to stand in there and throw it and rely on his quick release before the guy gets there.
Avery slips again.
He needs longer cleats. What's the rule? The longest you can have is 3/4 inch?
3/4 of an inch.
Yeah,
usually they start with half, then they'll go to 5/8, and then to 3/4.
Well, he just changed cleats.
I know.
We saw.
He probably went to 5/8.
Yeah.
I'm saying now is you better get to 3/4, and they still make 1-inch cleats too, I think. But they're not legal. But I think they're worn.
Oh, they're worn, and they're usually worn by those big 300-pounders who seem to just find your feet.
Here's Marino. 2nd and long. Here comes the 49er blitz. He saw it coming quickly and unloaded to a run to Gadsden.
You talk about him seeing it and unloaded it quick. And one of the big changes in this offense, they got rid of the audibles. And my own personal opinion is you have all that experience and all the stuff that Dan Marino brings to the table. One of the big ones is that he can see things to adjust, and he's done it for a long time. And now they took that off the table.
And I think they'll give it back to him because they're having trouble in this preseason. And everyone has trouble in this area we call the red zone inside the 20, and the closer they get to the goal line. And the Dolphins are having trouble in this area, and they're going to have to work on it. And one thing I think has to give a little more control back to Dan Marino.
On 3rd down, Marino fires. Has a man inside the 5. That's Kevin Alexander.
Now that situation there, that's that brings up the thing. What do you do now? If you don't get it into the end zone.
I say in preseason, give it a whirl. Why not?
Well, they haven't been successful giving it a whirl. I mean, that's the thing here. He would have liked to have gotten that ball in the end zone because you don't want to have to do this. You don't like to kick a field goal. You don't want to have to go for it on 4th down.
Well, they're going to give it a whirl.
And the whirl's going to be Dan Marino doing the whirl, and I'll guarantee you that it's not going to be a run.
Avery's a deep back, and it is a run. Touchdown.
My guarantee was no good.
Touchdown.
That's why it works, because you're thinking you get one back in the backfield. Old Marino's throwing it all over the place. They ought to kick a field goal. They just have one back. Everyone's saying pass rush, pass rush, pass rush. They aren't going to run it. And lo and behold, they run it. You say if they run it, they can't get it all the way in. They not only run it, but they do get it in.
Hey, 185 pounds showed a little bit of spunk right there. Lowered his shoulder and used the power to get into that end zone.
He ran over Zach Bronson. Zach Bronson was up there. Zach Bronson has to make that tackle, and he just ran right over him.
Murray's extra point is good. It's 20-14.
That's the way to keep off balance.
Reno probably through for the day. That's Lamar Thomas that they're looking at over on the sideline. Murray to kick it off. Avery scored from 3 yards out.
The receivers have had a tough day today.
Yeah.
That's the 4th time in 2 games.
Onside kick.
They've done onside kick.
Yeah.
And that Olinda he knows how to kick them too.
Yeah, he's really good at that. They started off the game, they kicked 2 last week, their first 2, and then they scored a touchdown, and then they kicked another one. What he does is he comes up here and kicks the top of the ball. He kicks the ball right on the top, then that makes it bounce into the ground, then the next bounce is high in the air.
That looks like it had to hurt.
And he does that pretty well, because he had his head and body saying, I'm going to the left, and his foot said, I'm going to the right.
Yeah, it's the old trick. You look one way and pass the other. The old basketball trick you used to do. Dean Taylor did that for years.
Did he? Pass caught by Herb Smith.
You know, that's a good thing to do in the preseason, though. Because now everyone, your first 2 or 3 opponents, they're watching your preseason films and they're breaking down. And like you said, in 2 games, the Miami Dolphins have kicked 4 onside kicks, and not in onside kick situations.
Right.
So everyone in the first 2 or 3 games of the season is going to say, watch out for the onside kick, and then you don't get your real kick returns.
But it also keeps your frontline guys not getting back as quick, which hurts you in the return game.
2nd and 2. This is Chuck Levy. Levy close to first down yardage.
The 49ers have changed their offensive line now. Got a whole new group in there. One of the guys that they have who's good to see back playing is number 79, Harris Barton.
Yeah.
Took the whole year off last year with a bad knee. Really thought he was going to have to pack it in, but worked really hard to come back, and looks pretty good, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Playing center. He was an all-pro tackle. Now, after the knee injury, he's back playing center and doing, as you say, a very good job. There's firing incomplete. Chad Fan was the intended receiver.
Some things never change.
That's right.
No, I mean it was such a half. I mean, so much of that was Steve Young and Terrell Owens that it was almost gimme. And if you didn't take it, it was almost being defiant. I mean, you had to. The Dolphins gave it to them. They had some mismatches there, and the 49ers took advantage of it. And Terrell Owens had 3 touchdowns.
2nd and 10. Druckenmiller back. Pass is complete to Awazake. All coaches tell you about balance. 33 yards rushing, 158 passing. That's not the kind of balance that Jimmy's looking for either.
Yeah, but sometime in Jimmy's coaching life with the Miami Dolphins, he has to admit that Dan Marino is his offense.
Yeah.
As the 49ers, it's Steve Young, and that's what it is. I mean, you can talk about run and balance, and after you get ahead, you can go and get your balance, but the way you're going to get ahead is with those guys.
Druckenmiller takes a timeout.
Old Druck couldn't get Chuck over there.
Yeah,
Come on, Chuck, you.
The one thing lost in those numbers The one thing lost in all those numbers was that there wasn't a lot of balance in the yardage, but I think they were pretty balanced in their run-pass ratio.
Or trying to, because
exactly.
I mean that's the thing. That was their plan, that they want to be balanced. But if you go like Miami ran 19 times and passed 23, and like you said, the number of times they called the play was pretty balanced, but the success wasn't the same. And it was the same with the 49ers. I mean, they had so much success just throwing the ball that, I mean, the balance could have been there, but why keep pounding? I mean, there was a guy that did an experiment with a rat, and the rat would go in, and if he went to the right, he'd get cheese. If he went to the left, he'd get banged over the head. So after a while, he'd go in, and he'd just go to the right all the time, never go to the left.
This sounds like a coaching technique.
Who was that guy that did that? Yeah, no, there was a guy. It was one of those guys.
Not Pavlov, I know that. He was the dogs.
I don't even want to know, I don't think.
No, but you know that one where the rat and the cheese and the get banged over the head. So you don't, I mean, it's the same thing. The 49ers, I mean, they pass, touchdown, run, not too much, so you pass.
I know it's a smart rat.
I'll tell you one thing, that would explain why I have a lot of lumps on the left side of my head.
You always want to go to the left, didn't you? You didn't care.
4th and 3. And the 49ers will keep it and try to go for it. Dolphins coming up with a blitz coming, and Druckenmiller hits the grass.
The Druck was trying to get an out and up and a little bit of a pick to the tight end, working on Brock Marion. That thing looked like it got tipped at the line of scrimmage again.
It's hardcore football on Fox Sports Net. This week, John Madden joins host Ronnie Lott, Bill Maas, and Ron Pitts as they show you the real NFL hardcore football. For you, the hardcore fans, check your local Fox Sports Net stations for the time in your area. Hardcore fans, I'll be watching. How about you, Matt?
Absolutely.
I consider
those are hardcore guys right there.
I consider myself.
Yeah. Well, here's what Bill Maas, he's going to do it. Yeah. Ronnie Lott is there. He's going to do it.
And you're joining those hardcore guys?
There he is.
There's Ronnie. Hey, Ronnie.
Ronnie Lott did so much for the 49ers, and they don't even let him sit in a place where he can see.
Erickson throws. Pass complete to John Avery. Marino.
There was a time.
His day. Excuse me.
There was a time when Jimmy Johnson took over that he thought Craig Erickson was going to be his quarterback. That Craig Erickson was going to beat out Dan Marino. And I think after Jimmy Johnson's been here a couple years with both Dan Marino and Craig Erickson, I don't think he feels that way anymore.
Even at 16 years in the league or 15 years in the league.
They fumble the snap from center. That always seems to be the mark of a backup quarterback these days. You can't get the exchange from center.
Yeah, I think at one point, Jimmy Johnson looked around and said, forget the plans. This is Dan Marino's team.
Repeat second down.
And that's one thing about Jimmy Johnson, that he is a smart guy. I mean, he has a plan, and he's a little hard-headed in his plan. I mean, he wants young guys, he wants fast guys, he wants his kind of guys. But if the other kind of guys are better than your kind of guys, then you're still going to play the other kind of guys.
Yeah, that's the one thing he always does and always has done. Even with young guys versus old guys, the guys who's played versus the guy who hasn't. If that young guy can play with no experience, he's in.
Erickson in that familiar stance back in the shotgun. He's going to take off. Head first dive after picking up a few. That's the end of the third quarter with the score. The 49ers 20, the Dolphins 14. This Fox NFL special will continue after a word. Start of the fourth quarter with the 49ers leading 20-14. It'll be 3rd and 7 for the Dolphins. Brock Marion is having his shoes changed. Said the cleats were coming through the soles and hurting his feet. That would hurt. Erickson back in the shotgun. The middle incomplete, knocked down by McWaters.
You know, we were talking to John Marshall yesterday about McWaters. He used a term that McWaters have. You know, if the team plays, if a guy plays on another team, he's a hot dog. If he plays on your team, here's John Marshall right here, the defensive coordinator. If he plays on your team, the term is athletic arrogance. Because McWaters has athletic arrogance.
I like him. I like what I've seen of him today.
I do too. He's a lot thicker guy than I thought.
Yes, he is. He's a thick guy.
McWaters gets away from the punt. Down just inside the 30 where the Dolphins will take over. The 49ers. Back in San Francisco, it's 20-14 in favor of the 49ers. And
that looks like...
I hate to guess what that injury is.
That looks like the groin wrap.
I would imagine that's Charles Jordan. Remember who had the groin pull. Matt saw him pull his groin in practice, and then we saw that play where he went out on the sideline.
That's Alvin Jackson.
Also, they have two guys with groin pulls.
Same injury.
That's not good.
Long grass. Druckenmiller going deep, incomplete, intended for Owezike.
Owezike is one of those guys, John, that we were talking about at the start of the game, about a veteran who's been in the league for 3 or 4 years, and then you find yourself in a competition, and how important a game like this is for him to have to come through and make some plays.
Well, you know, and the first indication that he's on the bubble, as you would say, is that he was a punt returner, and Steve Mariucci wasn't happy with him as a punt returner, so he put McWaters back there in this game, so they took that away from him already.
Levy, the ball carrier, no gain.
Those are the types of things that you look for, you know, in this preseason game. You can darn near guess who's going to make the team by the guys that play, when they play. And another reason, or another way, is the guys that play on special teams, because you not only have to get your offense and your defense ready for the season, but you also have to start getting your special teams groups ready for the regular season.
And getting them all on the same page and building that kind of continuity. When there's a good special teams group together, they work well together.
3rd and 9 as Druckenmiller retreats. Got away from the rush. Got away from tacklers. Fires incomplete.
I'll tell you, that was a different way to elude a rush. I mean, Steve Young just uses his feet and runs away, and Druckenmiller just powered his way through about 3 guys.
Well, you know who used to do that? Terry Bradshaw did that. I mean, you would get that same thing where the guy comes from the backside. You see Jason Taylor, he's going right, he's going left. He comes from the backside, he goes free. But Druckenmiller, like Terry Bradshaw, is so big and so strong that they can run out of those kind of tackles and still throw the ball.
Buckley retreats. Ball goes over his head. Buckley now picks it up, and he should not have done that.
Well, he knew that once the 49ers touched it that he had a free run with it, so he was trying to make something happen, but nothing good happened.
Picked up after it sailed over his head.
Yeah, you can see it's going to be touched right here on the 20-yard line. So now once it's touched, Buckley gets a free run with it, because if he doesn't get it back up there, the ball is going to be back where the 49ers first touched it anyway.
Back at the 20.
Yeah.
But if he had returned it,
then it would have been good.
Right.
So that's when they do it. I mean, they have to down the ball, but when you bat the ball, then the ball is still alive. The whistle hasn't blown, and the worst thing that you can do, the worst thing that can happen is the ball comes back to where it was illegal, where it was touched.
Greg Erickson, the Dolphin quarterback. Avery got the speed. Now he needed to somebody miss.
That was that Tyrone Smith.
It was.
Yeah, 24. That's a pretty good play. Got worked off the blocker, came up and made the tackle.
That's the thing, you know, we talk about forcing here, you have to have it, even though it's on the outside, way outside. You see, he comes off the block. Now, he has to be the outside guy, and he gets up there a little late, but if you're going to get up there late, then you have to make a tackle like that.
There are a lot of corners who like to make those tackles.
2nd and 3. Avery again is deep. And he gets the carry. Near a first, not quite.
Well, when Jimmy Johnson says he wants to see someone, he really does want to see someone, doesn't he? He has Avery. He's going to see him today. He's going to let him have the ball right, left, inside, outside.
12 carries, 28 yards. He scored the 1 touchdown. 3rd and 1. See if he gets another carry right now to get the 1. He needs a yard. He got a lot more than that. Got some speed. Yes, he does.
That was a test of the speed there. When he got that hole, he got through it, and he's a heck of a lot better in this second half than he was in the first half.
71-yard touchdown run by Avery.
They had everybody up front, and then they had Zach Bronson 31 behind. Once he gets through that opening line, now it becomes one guy to beat. And you can see right there, bad angle, and it's off to the races, and he knew it. He knew when he saw the green in between that he was gone.
He wasn't going to catch him from any angle.
And when Jimmy Johnson drafted Avery, that's what he drafted him for. He felt that he needed more speed at his running back position.
The Dolphins take the lead by 1, 21-20, with 12:03 left.
We talk about balance and offense and results. We look at the total yards. Miami has 279 yards now, and San Francisco has 288. Jimmy Johnson has a smile on his face, and that's, to me, that smile is all about John Avery.
Yeah,
and
right.
you know, we talked about wanting speed, and he got speed, and then you saw it in a game with a guy wearing pants and a helmet.
Levy bounced it in the air, and now he's got some room. Sean Wooden. That's Avery. Who's
you saying something to me?
Well, that's what a rookie does. You know, I mean, you have to experience everything in preseason. Remember, this is John Avery's rookie year. Not only that, this is his first game. So he's not even sure how that telephone works.
I wonder if he knew where the rats, who got the rats to go to the right to the cheese.
Yeah, he did that. I mean, once he got through that hole, he knew where that goal line was.
Cheese was.
They're on the phone.
What he had, though, is he had his ear. The part that he was listening to was the part you talk into.
Whoa, it doesn't take long, does it, for the manners to follow you around?
You know, I got to tell you something about this old man. I didn't know what the ballroom dancing stuff was, so I went to the library and looked it up this week, and I found some interesting stuff.
You know, this has got a lot of circulation.
This is the first thing I found was this thing by John Wolfgang Amadeus Madden.
It's a lot like Liberace in that outfit.
Set up.
Now, volume 2 was the best one.
I like the hair.
I loved it. 70 easy steps.
That's a tango.
See?
Yeah,
See, it's
tango.
coming out. You can't help it.
I know.
Yeah.
You just revert right away. You go,
Fernando's Hideaway. And that's where those dancing lessons may belong, in the hideaway.
That comes under the area of things a man should never do in his life, and if he does, don't admit.
Should never say, maybe. Chuck Levy again. 3rd and short. Don't think he got it. How's that book doing?
It's funny. Nobody had checked it out. I was the only one.
Well, the steps have changed over the years, and there's a different approach. So that was like that new show we have on Fox, the 70s. That was kind of a 70s approach to ballroom dancing.
Now, there's a guy who read your 70 steps to ballroom dancing right there. And they're going to make an Olympic sport, and I'm wondering if you would be interested in coaching that.
Yeah, how can they make that an Olympic sport? Seriously.
I have no idea.
I mean, there's some things that...
To some people, it's a challenge.
Yeah, but it's a challenge, but it's not a sport.
Well, it could be.
No, if you wear sequins to do it, it's not a sport.
We're down to sequins.
Liberace. I like it. You know what that is?
Yeah, it's the mouthpieces. That's where you store your mouthpiece. You always wonder, where your mouthpiece is where you're playing, and you always wonder, where does the mouthpiece go when you're not playing? In the storage bin.
I thought they kept it in their mouth. Good punt. Buckley again lets it bounce. And Buckley feels it. Has heard it out of bounds at about the 28.
Actually, that's something that's changed in football is wearing mouthpieces. Because I remember my rookie year with Ted Hendricks. I got in the huddle, and I put my mouthpiece in. They're all custom fit, so they're nice and tight, and you're supposed to be able to speak. And I got in the huddle, and I called the signals. We broke the huddle, and Ted Hendricks came over to me and said, "Hey, new mouthpiece. Yeah, let me take a look at that. Nice and tight. Yeah." Handed it to him, threw it into the stands in Kansas City, said, "Now I can listen to you."
Oh, yeah, because we didn't wear mouthpieces in those days.
And I got 7 broken teeth to tell you why.
Oh, yeah, well,
you should wear them.
First and 10 Dolphins. They lead by a point.
That was neatly done. I mean, they even had their names and everything on there.
Yeah, that's way too nice.
Yeah, way too nice.
That's Ray Neely.
Usually you take your mouthpiece and you stick it right on your helmet, and that's where it stays.
Yeah.
You take it out, when you're done, you just stick it up in your face mask, between your face mask and your helmet, and you walk to the sideline, and you're done with it.
And what is it doing you up there?
Well, when you're on the sideline.
Oh, when you're not playing.
Yeah.
And then if someone loses theirs and wants to borrow yours, they just pick it off your helmet. Like if you're defense,
take it right off.
You were in the 49ers locker room today, and you caught their starting fullback Mark Edwards brushing his teeth.
That's terrible.
Right
before the game, brushing his teeth, and of course, Kevin Gogan happened to walk by and said, "You just made a big mistake."
Gogan would never do that.
No, you always go into a game with bad breath. Always.
Second and 10. Erickson kept the ball.
That was always one of the advantages of being a football player is you don't have to take a shower to go to work.
Personal hygiene. Yeah. Personal hygiene is a low priority on game day. You want to be as smelly and rank as you can going into the game. And Gogan was telling us right before the game, he said Joe Phillips, the old defensive tackle, was in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Said it was like he ate Polish sausages before every game and just burped in your face all game long.
Any little advantage.
That's an advantage. Erickson back to throw it. Has it knocked out of his hand. His arm was going forward. It's an incomplete pass. Today's game is being produced by Bob Stenner, directed by Sandy Grossman. The associate director is Mike Roig. The broadcast associates are Fran Morrison and Charles McDonald. Technical producer Bob Muller. Studios produced by Scott Ackerson, directed by Bob Levy. The associate director was Jennifer Love. The senior producer is Bill Brown. The executive producers of Fox Sports are Ed Gorin and David Hill.
I guess his arm was going forward.
Dolphin punt fielded by McWaters. McWaters taken down at the 35.
A nice job of pressure by Troy Wilson on that last play.
Look at that haircut that Gogan got. I'm not sure what the heck that is because he has a few dents up in there.
He got some. It was going for the cheese to the left side too long.
Yeah, I mean that's not. I'm not an expert on haircut, but that's not a good-looking haircut for old Gogan.
Tell you what, old Gogs is a dandy.
Yeah, but he may have done that one himself, or he may have gotten someone to do that for him. I don't think that seriously. I don't think that's a bought haircut.
Look at that neck support he got on. That looks like an old tire. Detmer is the quarterback. The ball's loose. A flag is goes down. The Dolphins, I believe, made the recovery, if that's a fumble.
Boy, a lot of stuff happened right at Detmer. I mean, that ball does draw a crowd.
Yes, it does.
And you can't hold it in your hand too long.
And he looked the field over, had nowhere to go. Tried to pull it down, and then the thing came out. It's funny talking to Steve Young about Ty Detmer. He said, Ty Detmer, I learned from him. When he speaks, I listen.
The play by the quarterback was an incomplete forward pass. Personal foul. Grasping and pulling on the face mask. Number 60 of the offense. 15 yards. Repeat first down.
60 of the offense is right there, and you see that grasp and pull.
And pulling.
That was the penalty right there. And then Ty Detmer on the pass his arm was going forward, so that was an incomplete forward pass.
Grasping and pulling. Grasping's bad enough, but pulling.
Well, that's what you do when you get beaten. When you're beaten, you grasp something. That's what Ruman did on that. He grasped something, and then you know that he's going to get your quarterback, so you just hold on to what you grasp.
First and 25, Ty Detmer. Play with the Packers, of course with the Eagles, and now with the 49ers. And Detmer gets to Levy. And Levy gets out to about the 28.
I thought that was interesting what Steve Young said about Ty Detmer being the smartest quarterback he's been around. Because there was a pretty good one before. It was pretty darn smart in Joe Montana.
Yeah, but that's not a good sight right there.
That's Harris
Barton. That's that knee. We were just talking about Harris Barton now, how he had missed all of last year with a knee, and I talked to him last night when we were on our walk, went by the hotel, and he was feeling so good about being able to come back. And
Mariucci's out, Steve Young's out.
He and Steve Young have been as tight as can be since they both showed up here.
Harris Barton is something special to Steve Young, but he's something special to this team, too.
Yes, he is.
And as you said, you hope it's not that knee. But it looks like it might be.
Steve Young lived with him for 3 years in the spare bedroom and never paid a cent. Harris always told about it.
I know it. It's the fourth quarter of a preseason game, and like Harris was telling us last night, in his career, he's never had a lot of experience being in fourth quarters of preseason games. And
there's Harris right there in the middle. He's working on the inside backer, and then just got rolled up from behind.
Somebody just rolled up on his legs from the back.
That's one of those things that, even though experience, I mean, it can't get you out of that because you have everything in front of you and you're blocking, and there's no way that you feel or know, or guys coming across from behind. But look at the guys out there. Derek
just looking the same thing.
Terrell
Owens, they all, and he's that kind of guy where everybody kind of revolves around Harris. That whole team, he's kind of the heart and soul and an offensive lineman. He's carried that mantle for a long time.
Well, he was in agony at the beginning. Now it looks like the look is encouraging. Detmer just gets it out of there. A flag on the play. Levy made the catch. Maybe, there's such a thing as adhesions after you go through that long a rehabilitative period. I wonder.
I'm not even sure that it's the same knee,
I'm not either.
That's Dr. Dillingham there with the glasses who did the surgery on Harris Barton. One of the doctors who did one of the surgeries.
Holding 60 offense. Penalty is declined. Third down.
That's Chris Ruman, who has his second penalty. Yeah. Remember, he was the grasp and pulling, and now he holds. Someone yells, "Come on, Ty."
Cutting the tape off Harris Barton. 3rd and 15 in the meantime. Detmer back to throw it. Under heavy pressure. Can't get rid of it.
Burton beat Hanshaw quick right away. And Detmer never had a chance.
And there was nothing he could do. This is a tough thing when you're the third or the mop-up backup quarterback here, you're going to see it's just right now. He didn't have a chance. I mean, he just runs right by him. Ty Detmer, by the time that last foot got dropped there, that back foot, he was right on him. He couldn't do anything about it.
That was Dunstan Anderson who finally took him down. Buckley back deep. Thompson's punt. Bounces a flag back at the line of scrimmage. Buckley takes it out of bounds, goes out of bounds at the 40.
I think if something were to happen to Steve Young early in the season, the backup quarterback would not be Jim Druckenmiller, it would be Ty Detmer, yeah.
Well, as you said, they know what he can do.
Holding 86 of the kicking team. Penalty is declined. First down, Miami.
First down, Miami. Still looking at Harris Barton. Checking that leg. All right. 6:17 left to play. Pat Summerall with John Madden and Matt Millen. Erickson is the Miami quarterback. Ray Neely gets the carry for very little.
Yeah, we were talking before the game, or Matt, you were talking about how important this is for a number of guys, because the teams can have 80 players now, and then on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, they all have to cut to 60. And then, of course, the following week, it'll be to 53. So there's a lot of guys that are maybe playing their last football of their life right now in this fourth quarter.
Pass is incomplete. You know, that's, as you said, Tuesday, August 25th, the roster cut down to a maximum of 60 players. As you said, a lot of players playing their last football. That doesn't seem like a traumatic thing, but if you've been a part of a game and you've played it all your life, that is a terrible thing to face.
I think the toughest time to face it is not so much the first year or the second year. It's the guys who've been there for a while when all of a sudden you're done and you know it's it.
And it's a finality because you've been doing it all your life, and it's not something you can say, well, I'll take a few years off and come back. You'll never do it again the rest of your life.
You'll never replace it. That's Neely. Jerry Rice, I think, in an interview which I'm sure many of you saw, talked about why he tried to come back, why he went through that torture of recuperation that he did, and then to get hurt again, and then to go through the whole thing again. It's one of the most moving things I've ever seen.
Well, it's just his passion. I mean, it's just Jerry Rice's love for the game and wanting to be out there. And this, you see the tear coming down his eye. This was one of our games last year, the first game that he came to after he was injured.
And that was during the national anthem.
And you realize at that point that you're not there. You're not in the uniform. You're not part of it. And you wonder if you're ever going to be part of it again.
I know as a player, it is really, really a tough adjustment when you're not doing it.
Well, the report, if there is such a thing as an encouraging injury report, this preliminary, I'm sure, report on Harris Barton is it's a high ankle sprain.
And that's one of those things that was Detroit seemed to have. Everybody in their team had a high ankle sprain.
But it's still good news because the thing that you worry about is you hope it's not that same knee, and the good news is that it's not.
Levy. Jerry Rice saying that's when I'll be back. The regular season's in 2 weeks.
You see what they made sure, though, that he didn't have a helmet on.
That's the thing. Yeah, he wanted to dress, but you don't give him a helmet. That's the old trick. But Steve Mariucci said that first game against the New York Jets, Jerry Rice will start.
2nd and 7. Mark Harris makes the reception from Detmer. today's injuries, Jordan and McDuffie, 2 wide receivers for the Dolphins, along with the safety, Calvin Jackson, Harris Barton. You never know.
And you see, that's why we talked earlier how this is this is your game that you go all out to see where you are, because if you do get guys injured, at least you have 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You don't have to play them in that last preseason, so you have 2 weeks for your season opener.
First down, San Francisco. The Dolphins are already thin at that wide receiver position. So 2 weeks, maybe both those guys will be ready to be back.
Yeah, that's the thing, to pull muscle, you get the rest and so on. And Steve Young, we could see, remember, he hit his hand on a helmet, had an ice pack on it earlier, and doesn't have that ice pack on there anymore.
Don't you know the reason he's smiling? I guarantee you, if Harris Barton had hurt his knee, Steve Young wouldn't be smiling at this point.
I think that was probably the good news when everyone heard it was his ankle. And I mean, in most cases, that wouldn't be good news, but obviously in Harris Barton's case, it is. You can see that they got the ice right now on his right ankle.
Talking to Dr. Gogan down there.
I'm not
calling Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, and Dr. Gogan.
Dr. Gogan is the guy I'm not going to call if I get hurt.
See, Dr. Gogan's down there because he's next to the fan. I know why Dr. Gogan's down there. He has nothing to do with Harris Barton or his ankles. He wants to get close to the fan.
Detmer gives to Levy.
When you get to be up over 320 pounds, a man, the fan's your best friend.
I hope you're talking about a man.
No, that's man's best friend is an industrial-sized fan.
That or some additional food.
See that industrial-sized fan? That's why Gogan was up there.
Want the squeeze!
And then he got fanned off, and now he doesn't need Harris Barton anymore.
Gogan needs a bigger fan than that.
Well, that's industrial size.
So is he.
We were watching Jerry Rice. I watched him in practice, and then this is what he did before the game. And
Jerry Rice.
Every one of the tests that you can do without contact, he's passed.
Why is the guy is covering him wearing boxing gloves?
Because he's trying to get up there and get some contact with him, and I think that's the thing Jerry Rice is going to do more of this week. Is just kind of where they beat him around with gloves and bags and those kind of things.
In 2 weeks, they won't be wearing boxing gloves. Get out those bell bottoms and get ready to hustle, because the 70s are back and groovier than ever. From the writers of Wayne's World comes That 70s Show. Premieres tonight at 8:30, 7:30 Central, after an all-new Simpsons on Fox. Get out those bell bottoms.
That was you in the 70s?
Yeah, but I didn't have any bell bottoms, I guarantee you.
Well, they haven't. I think you did.
I don't know what I was doing.
Well, you were at Yankee
It was good.
Yankee Stadium.
Whatever you were doing it at Yankee Stadium.
And a big old smile on your face,
I was
too.
happy. I liked what I was doing.
Hey!
Who's the guy in the middle?
It's Howard.
The great Howard Cosell.
Tom Selleck.
Yeah, Tom Selleck.
And John Selleck.
Wait a minute. Was that your ballroom dancing suit you were wearing?
No.
That's it. That's a leisure suit.
That's the beautiful, the smart, and the ugly.
That may be a new show coming back.
Look at the size. No, I mean, forget me. Look at the size of that collar on Howard Cosell.
John, you had a leisure suit.
Why would we want to forget you? Now let's see about Matt.
Hey, here's Mom and Dad.
Why do you have that not that big?
Who's the guy?
Because my neck was a 20 at the time.
The guy in the middle is Pete Rose.
That's my pop and my mom right there.
Look at the knot in that tie. No wonder you got a big neck.
That was you in
Just
the
carrying
70s?
that tie.
You had to be pretty strong to put that to carry that knot.
You had what size
Strong
neck?
neck.
It was big. I know that.
That was you in the 70s. That was Mom and Pop.
Mom and Pop, yeah.
You knew nothing has changed. You knew how to run down the groceries in the 70s too, didn't you?
Where the heck did you find that one?
Where'd they find any of them?
I one to guess that you had a coat and tie.
That was my Penn State issue. I think I still have it.
This Fox NFL special is brought to you by Miller Lite.
This is the 49ers' great quarterback.
Holy smokes. He's an ex-Madden reject right there.
You know, Terrell Owens is the guy that's always trying to teach him, and Garrison Hurst is trying to teach him how to dance. And
I think it's hopeless.
You know, I mean, he's a complete stiffola. And they get him over in the sidelines, and it's kind of a joke. And they do a dance, and then they get him to try and do it. And that's great. If they want to laugh, they always go up and tell Steve Young to do a dance for him.
You could have worked him out. You could have worked some rhythm into him, couldn't you? No.
Fumble. Not much to work with there.
Fumble in San Francisco saying he got it back.
For those of you expecting to see World's Funniest, it will be seen following football except on the West Coast, where it will be seen at its regular time.
You know, a guy who here in his fourth quarter in San Francisco has been playing pretty well was that Troy Wilson. He made a couple of plays, and he did it a lot just on hustle and just taking off. I think when you have your chance, you got to give it everything you got.
Especially in a game like this.
You're only going to get on film so much, and one thing about getting on film or tape, in this case in a game, the other teams are going to see it too. So you're not only, when you get in a preseason game as a player, you're not only trying to impress your team to make that team, when you're a marginal guy, but you're trying to get on film or get on tape to look good to maybe impress someone on another team that'll pick you up.
They'll be looking at those waiver wires and who's been released.
The game
to
tapes,
fill a need,
The game tapes were I always thought was your resume. Yeah. And how you played was how you signed it. And so you better get out there and present yourself in a good resume, or you're not going to have yourself much of a job.
Because, talking about waivers and looking for players, the 49ers are waiting, and they're going to look on the waiver wire for some defensive linemen, because right now, especially at a defensive tackle, they're thin in that area. They need another guy or maybe even two other guys.
49ers are out of timeouts. Buard, the Miami quarterback, just kneels. Big day for Terrell Owens. 6 catches, 133 yards, and all 3 touchdowns for the 49ers. All from Steve Young.
Yeah, and that's going to be an interesting thing as we see Harris Martin again going off the field with that right ankle on crutches. But it's going to be interesting. I think the 49ers will use a lot of 3 wide receivers with Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, and J.J. Stokes. But it'll be interesting to see when they use 2 who the 2 are. I think initially it's probably going to be Jerry Rice and J.J. Stokes, but boy, it'd be hard to keep Terrell Owens out of there. Jimmy Johnson has to feel good about this, because Jimmy Johnson is one of those guys, like most coaches are. They go, it doesn't make any difference. You're in a parking lot, or you're flipping pennies up against the wall, or you're doing it. Whatever you're doing, Jimmy Johnson wants to win it.
And he said traditionally the Dolphins have never done well on the West Coast. They really struggled when they came out here. And to walk away or run away or fly away with a victory, that has to be satisfying to Jimmy.
And then, he'll love that victory, and his next concern will be the injuries, of course, and then getting through that last preseason game and getting ready for the opener.
49ers are out of timeouts. Dolphins ran it down as far as they could. Now they are penalized with 25 seconds to go.
Right, and they will get a timeout here. They don't have any timeouts, any team timeouts, but they will get a timeout here, and change of possession will be an automatic timeout.
Now get out of bounds. McWaters.
I like this kid, John. He's got some.
I do too.
He might go all the way with this punt. Nope, down he goes.
He's got some.
Down to 8 seconds.
Robert Williams reporters.
Well, he put him in position. I mean, the 49ers are down by 1 point. And if they could complete one pass, get out of bounds, and kick a field goal, they could win this game.
Steal it, yeah.
8 seconds left.
would say that they probably need about a 25-yard pass completion to get in field goal range. Anything under 25 would be too long for a field goal.
Here's Detmer. Gonna try what you ordered. Incomplete.
He had it open. He knew what he wanted to do. He put three to one side and had a one-on-one up top, and he was going to try to get that 20 yards right there.
And he knows the completion doesn't do any good unless you get into field goal range, and he threw it right to a point where if this ball had been caught there, they would have been in field goal range.
Ryan Thelwell was the intended target.
Now you have to throw into the end zone.
Because you're not thinking two plays now. Now you just think one play. So they got them all out here, and they'll probably throw one of those Hail Marys to the right.
Detmer as far as he can throw it.
That's ugly.
And knocked down by Buckley. This is Pat Summerall then saying for John Madden and Matt Millen goodbye from San Francisco, where the final score is the Dolphins 21, the 49ers 20. JB will be along after these words, except for those of you in the Pacific and Mountain time zones. You'll return to local programming. The National Football League is a presentation of Fox Sports.